Well, through the centuries, many people have believed that great art often comes from great pain. And I think in the case of my guest today, it rings absolutely true. Cheryl Nembhard has experienced much heartbreak in her life, but she's funneled that trauma into creating powerful plays and films that help bring healing to others. I love that you do that. Welcome.
Welcome, Cheryl.
So I just want to know, because, a lot of people who go through real trauma like you've experienced, they get stuck in it. They become bitter or a victim and they relive it all the time. How did you get unstuck to the fact that now you're helping other people?
The Bible says that God's love covers a multitude of sins. I always say that God's love releases us from a multitude of sins. And I got unstuck by the love of God, such a simple but powerful force. It changed my life. It revolutionized the way I see the world. And through that love, I've been able to shift my pain into purpose. And that purpose has birthed the platform.
Well, let's talk about where you started, because you grew up with a single mom who was working all the time to put food on the table. Lots of people are in that situation.
Yes.
But when she was gone at work all the time, you were actually being abused. Tell me about that.
From the ages of 5 to 12, through a family friend, I was abused, and it was a sexual abuse, and it was very, very painful, very traumatic, and for 7 years, it was hell on earth, and it changed everything about me. I became very depressed. At 12 years old, I was involved in fights. I was beginning to cut. I was drinking. I was doing drugs. Anything that I can do to numb the pain. I was crying out from the inside.
And a lot of parents, who find out later that their kids were abused or whatever, was there anyone that you could tell, or did you try to tell?
I tried to tell, and I always speak about this, it's always good as a parent to really watch the signs. I think that, drops in grades and behavioral stuff, and just kids that are just emotional, and there's a few things that we can look for, and so it's really cool to be able to encourage parents to keep their eyes open to what's happening in their children's lives.
And you started transforming, and not in a good way, and you were running with a gang, you were getting very tough. You were actually really hurting people, doing tough things, and you didn't care.
Yeah.
Why didn't you care?
Because hurt people, and pain is progressive. We spiral when we're in that world of pain. That blackness begins to swallow up our entire lives. And I wanted to inflict myself and inflict others because I was angry. And that is really the birthing place of pain, is anger and hurt. I was angry at God, and I was angry at God's people. And this person also was my Sunday school teacher, which is just a layer that blows many people away to hear that could happen in the kingdom of God. And it's something we need to talk about. And so through that pain, I joined a gang, because gangs feel like family. I was looking for acceptance, and you're lost in your identity. And when you're sexually molested and abused, you don't know who you are. So you make a lot of wrong choices in the journey of finding yourself.
And I think not only do you not know who you are, but you start to believe there's something wrong with you. There was something about you that caused it to happen, which we all know is a lie, but...
Absolutely, it's a lie, but we tend to put that mirror on ourselves, and that's what the enemy does. It's our fault, it's our situation, we're the cause of it, and it has nothing to do with us. When God sees us, he sees a masterpiece, fully complete and whole. It's us that places brokenness and tarnishing and sin on our lives.
And so here you are, you found this family in the gang, you're very tough, nobody can hurt you anymore, and you get abused again, you get raped.
Yeah, that literally broke me. I literally broke inside. At the age of 16, I was raped, and from this family that I was trying so desperately to receive acceptance from. At that point, I went from anger to absolute suicidal thoughts. I was shattered. I went from tough kid to trouble kid to traumatized kid. And I was on and off the streets. I started to really get into some destructive behavior. That was when my drug use intensified. Became very promiscuous. Unfortunately, made some choices that I regret in terms of abortions. And it was there on the streets that I encountered the love of God.
Yeah, that's fascinating. A street preacher. So sometimes we might say, oh, these people who preach on the street aren't doing any good, or it's not culturally relevant. But that actually, how did that touch you?
I think that urban evangelism is one of the most powerful frontline ministries that we have. This man just continuously, without conditions, showed me the love of God. The most powerful sermon that I've ever heard to date, and I've gone to Bible college and I'm in ministry now, it was a hot chocolate and a donut. Just a practical, sitting down, loving relationship. Without even introducing Christ, he just showed me love for months before he brought in and introduced the man who would change my life forever.
That must have been tough for you too, because you probably didn't trust anyone, especially men, considering what you'd experienced. So how hard did he have to work to get you to trust him?
Pretty hard. I resisted him. I hated him. There was a lot of anger, but you know, what's amazing, when you know what you're called to do, and he was called to bring love and reflect love, he stayed focused in that purpose. And so I encourage people to really think about those that they can touch in their everyday life. And you know, sometimes street people are considered the untouchable ones, but I'm so grateful that there are people that are called to that, because I would not be standing here today if it was not for someone being that voice for God for me.
And he invited you to church. And so when did the real transformation start to take place in your heart? Like, when did you kind of embrace Christ?
In my 20s, I started to really, the tough, cemented heart started to soften. And I started to trust. The walls came down. I started to forgive, and that was the moment of transformation.
Wow.
It is the power of forgiveness. And I realized that forgiveness didn't have anything to do with what they had done. It didn't make what they did right or wrong. It just set me free. And that is the gift that I try to give others, is that letting go. It can release you into purpose, into destiny, into what God's called you to be. You're living half a life if you're not forgiving.
And you know, one thing I notice about you is a lot of people who've been through what you've been through, they get lost in shame. They never really want to talk about it. They might have a new life, but don't ask me to talk about my old life. But you don't wear it. How did that happen? How did you get rid of that shame?
Because I realized that I, like many people, we are the woman at the well. And it's because of our testimony that people will come to Christ. Many people in the streets and many young people, they're tired of this. They've tuned this out. You can quote a sermon, you can quote a verse, they're not going to get it. But what they want to know is, how did he change your life? Give me the personal story. Show me where you were and show me who you are now. And that is what I will believe. The woman at the well said she wasn't a scholar. She just said, come see a man that showed me all that I am. And they knew who she was, the story, the scandal that she was. And so they were curious, and I use my testimony as a living sermon.
You have used drugs. You've been an alcoholic in a sense.
Yes.
You've been on and off the streets.
Yes.
You've cut yourself.
Yeah.
You've wanted to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Who is Cheryl today? What is different about you?
Cheryl is a minister now of the gospel, and in a really cool way, through the arts and through media. And I've been able to sort of take my stories and take the stories of those that I still work with on the streets and turn it into film and turn it into plays that have touched hundreds and thousands of people. It's been humbling to see, but that's the power of art. And I believe that God is raising the arts as a new 21st century tool of evangelism, because it brings the gospel to life. It animates the gospel, and you can see the love and the transformation, and you can relate to that story.
You know, your play, The Ultimate Sacrifice, was a sellout at Mirvish's Panasonic Theatre in Toronto. Your Brother's Keeper debuted at the Prestige Music Hall in Toronto. Now you're working on a film called The Truth. Tell me about that.
The Truth is a short film. It's the third I've been able to shoot it on sexual trafficking. And it's such a horrible epidemic that's happening in our city right now. We've heard the stories on the news, rings that are being broken, children as young as 10 and 11, held against their will. It is forced abduction, forced rape, and I just wanted to help and do my part and be a voice, and use this film as a tool to reach, to help those that are rescuing, to show those that are hurting, to just give it to anyone and everyone that can use it as a tool. So
and
that's
I know
what
we put up the website, you're crowdfunding right now to be able to produce that film. I know that art is cathartic, it's also healing.
Yes.
What advice would you give to somebody who has someone in their life that is so lost like you, and they're struggling to know how to reach them? What advice would you give them quickly here?
100% authenticity is what opens the door. I don't want a polished gospel. I don't want a made-up gospel. I want a hard-hitting, broken, got back up, fell down, got back up gospel. And that is what reaches people. Be genuine, be authentic, be willing to roll the curtains off of your own life. And that is how you connect people. It's the human connection. I've been there, I understand, I see you. That's what they want to hear.
I love that. There's so many more things I want to ask you, but we are out of time. But you are such a powerful witness of what God can do. Thank you for all you're doing and that you're going to do, because I don't think we've seen what Cheryl Nembhard is going to do yet.
Thank you.
Well, if you've been watching that and that's touched a core in your life, wherever you are, whatever you're going through, God can reach you, God can change you, and He is in the process of changing us still. It's a journey that we're on. We'd like to walk that journey with you. Give us a call. Our prayer lines are there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.